Hi, today we're going to talk about InDesign and we're going to make a graphic similar to this for a poster or a flyer. First thing we're going to do is to open InDesign. You can see that I have this maximized on my computer. So you're going to want to make sure that you hit the plus button to maximize your application. I'm going to go to File to New Document. Here at the onset of launching InDesign, we have opportunities to choose our sizes. So we have recent save, print, web, and mobile up at the top. In this case, we're going to make this a print. I'm going to choose letter, but note that this is set up as picas. I want to choose inches. And there's my 8.5 by 11. If I want to make changes to this, I can overtype this by selecting this and hand typing a new size. So if I wanted this 8.1 or 8 inches, it'll round it down. It'll make it 8 inches. I'm going to keep that 8.5. This is one page, and I'm going to create. At this time, I could give it a name here, and this will be for a printout for a party for an office sign. So I'm going to give that a meaningful name. And if I hit create, that name will appear up here, up at the top. So I have to create some shapes here. The first thing I'm going to do is type out, just place some text here. I use Hello World as a type placement. Minion Pro is the default Adobe font. So that's what will appear here. I'm going to choose, we'll go through and choose an Arial Black. I can center up here. And I can choose my point size. This panel up here, or this so-called ribbon up at the top for the attributes, appears because my type tool's on. I can also make changes with my character by pressing Command T. This character box will pop up. And it's a panel that's useful for choosing type. So I chose Arial Black. Arial Black shows up here. If I wanted to change this to say Impact, another type font, I just start pressing I and Impact pops up. My font will change. Here's my point size. And it will also change up here. If I wanted to pop color on it, I can use my swatches to apply color. The swatch panel can be found by finding Window to Color and choosing Swatches. Any of the panels that you need can be found under Window, and things like character and paragraph that are so important for a graphic designer can be found here, as well as layers. You can see I have my layers here. If these are unchecked, they'll disappear. If I want them back up, I just click on Windows, or click on Layers, and it'll pop up here. So I can join these layers panels by clicking on them and dropping and dragging them onto each other. So you can kind of tidy up your background, your work area. If I have a box up here and I don't want it, If I click the X, it'll disappear or close. If I click these two icons or chevrons, I can collapse this box. Once this box is like this, if I click this, it'll make it active, or click this to unactive that box, that panel. I can click on it and drop and drag it into another panel to kind of neaten up your desktop. So you can pull on these panels and kind of move them around, rearrange them as needed. You just click on the name and kind of drag them out. Okay, I'm going to insert a graphic. I'm going to choose this rectangle frame tool. I'm going to pull out a box, and I'm going to go to File to Place. Now I made a graphic earlier, and I'm going to place this graphic here. This graphic didn't resize to fill this container, so I'm going to choose my selection tool, click on my graphic. I'll see this circular shape here, and that is telling me that I can right click on this graphic and interact with it. I'm going to go to fitting and choose some of these fitting options. You can see there's a whole bunch of them in here, and I would highly recommend practicing this. You know, and being patient with yourself when it comes to choosing the fit, the way that you want your graphics to fit, because you have a lot of options here. It's not a one and done. There's all kinds of options here. So if I click fit proportionately, it still crops my graphic out. So I would have to do manual work here to click and pull. If I go back here to fitting and choose fit content proportionately to the box that I made, it'll resize to that box. If my box is too large, I'm going to just sort of tighten that up to make that a little tighter. I'll also do this with my text box, okay, so that these boxes, I don't end up with all these extra boxes. If this happens to you, your text box has a little white or red cross here, this means that your text is larger than the text container. You'll end up with like an error message down here. So we're always keeping an eye on errors here. If you click on this drop down panel or arrow, you're going to want to choose pre-flight panel, and this will give you some insight as to what's happening with your document. If you click on this text box that appears here, the drop down, it'll say that you have overset type. If I click on this again, I can see that it's in a text frame. So if I had multiple pages here, I can find the problem by just double clicking on this text frame. It'll tell me exactly where the problem is. So if I deselect that, and I'll show you that again. So I don't know where the problem is, but the problem exists. I'm going to click on here, pre-flight panel. Double click, and double click. It'll go right to where the issue is. The minute that I pull this out and expand that type or make the correction, I go green again, no errors. So this pre-flight can be very helpful on your desktop publishing process. So I have two layers happening here. We're going to talk about layers here. I have a graphic called Best of Luck card, and if I click on that, that becomes active, and the Hello World text box. I'm now going to put in a rectangle, by choosing, if I click on these in my toolbar here, if I need you to note these little rectangles in the corner on your tools here. If you click on that, you have other options. So I'm going to choose rectangle, go from my corner all the way down to my other corner, and I'm going to fill that with color. Now on my layers, so this shows color, this shows color, my swatches show color, so you get multiple locations of where those colors are showing up. On my layer, my rectangle is on top. If I click on this rectangle under layers and drop and drag it, I can send it to the back by manually pulling it down. If I click undo, Command Z, I have the other method of changing or moving my layers around by going to Object, Arrange, Send to the back. So there's multiple ways that you can deal with layers on your desktop. And imagine these are like sheets of paper on your desktop in front of you. You're just sort of rearranging them. I'm going to lock this rectangle. I can no longer move that rectangle, and a little lock appears here. This helps us arrange graphics and lock them so that they can't be moved. I'm going to work with this Hello World. So if I click on it under layers, if I click on that blue, the selection button here, this now is active and I can work with that box. So I'm going to highlight that text and turn it to paper, which means it's white. So I want to have some contrast here. If I collapse layer 1, all my elements are hidden beneath this layer 1. This allows me, this collapse button, to see the different layers I have. I have 3 layers. I'll unlock that. It's this layer, it's now active. This layer, active. This layer, which was a graphic that I did in Illustrator. I'm going to lock the background. I get a lock. If I lock Hello World, I get a lock. If I lock this graphic, I get a lock. That means I can't move any of these elements. Nothing will move. It's because these are locked. So you can unlock and lock. I can also turn these things on and off as needed by clicking on the eyeball. Because they're all under layer 1, if I want to unlock these and just lock layer 1, it'll lock everything. If I want to turn them all off, I just click that and all my layers go off. I'm going to make a new layer, so I'll collapse this layer. And here I'm going to add a new layer. 2 ways to do that. Create new layer button here, or create one here by clicking on the 3 little lines here in the panel. I'm going to call this my graphics on top. So I'm kind of giving it meaningful names for me. And there's my graphics on top. I'm going to make a series of boxes, or rather ellipses, and I'm going to add color to these. So I'm going to click undo, Command Z, because I didn't like the way that came out. I'm going to hold the shift button down to hold the circumference. So right now this is set with a no fill box and a black outline. I'm going to choose this to be a different color. So I'll say yellow, and I'm going to remove that black outline so I can make that outline to none. I'm going to copy paste this a couple times. Command C to copy, Command V to paste. So I'm pasting a bunch of times, and this is actually just by pressing Command V multiple times, it copied a whole bunch of these and it put them right in the center of my screen. So Command C does that. If I select these and I expand my layers, you can see that they're all active. My background is locked. So if I do a pullover with my selection tool, all of these become active. I'm going to pop them into my graphic here, and because they're all selected, I can make these larger. I'm going to copy and paste these again and actually rotate these. All of these graphics now are in this layer. I can do a change of color by having them all selected all at the same time. And I'm going to put a tint on these. So I'm going to tint these down to 50%. I'm going to do the same with my yellow. So I'm going to just pop these off to the side. Select all my yellows. Make that in the 50 percentile. And I'm zooming in and out by Command minus and Command plus. Because sometimes I'll work on the non-printing area here. I'm going to copy paste these shapes again. Command C, Command V. Do a change on the color. Make these a little bit smaller. Pop these shapes in. I'm going to copy paste that whole setup again. Just rotate them so that they appear elsewhere. All these shapes now are on graphics on top, but my best of luck and Hello World are kind of underneath that. I'm going to unlock these, and I want to bring Hello World and Best of Luck into my graphics on top layer, and they kind of pop to the top. You can navigate these, so if I want this Best of Luck to be partially covered with circles, depending on where I place this, it will layer in or out, you know, with these colors on top or on bottom. If I go to Object, Arrange, I got to make sure that that's active by selecting it. Object, Arrange, Bring to the front, it'll bring it to the top here in my layers. If I want Hello World active, I click on Hello World, and Hello World is active. I'm going to lock Hello World and the Best of Luck graphic. And I'm going to go through and kind of move some of these circles around so that I get this sort of nice pattern happening here. So this is one method of designing that, and I can resize some of these circles individually by selecting them and just rescaling them. They're unlocked, so they're accessible. So this is one way of designing with graphics and adding text. Okay? So things that you need to know are scaling of graphics and working with type and graphic elements on your page. If I wanted to do a drop shadow on my graphic on the top, click on my Hello World by my Best of Luck graphic, selecting that, and I'm going to put a drop shadow on this by a right click or a control click on a Mac, effect, and drop shadow. As long as this is checked for a preview, I can see that this is giving me a drop shadow. And I can change that drop shadow, the intensity of it, or the opacity of it on this outline. I can also choose these different choices, and you can go through them and check and see what they have. Drop shadows are very common to kind of lift graphics or the important elements off the page. So I'm going to choose that. I'm also going to make this a little bit bigger. So I rescaled that box. I'm going to right click on this and again go to fit content proportionately. I can use my arrow keys to arrow this back and forth on my graphics to do my fine tuning. Command R gives me my ruler. So I want to choose my ruler. To bring this up, I'm going to drop a guideline on. Right now this is set at 8.5, left to right. You can see that with the ruler on top. So I'm going to zoom in just a bit here. This ruler is changing. So the size characteristics changed. This is 8.5, because you can tell up here on the ruler. Half of 8.5 is 4.25, and that's there. I'm going to click into my ruler, click, hold, and drop a guideline in the center. I can see that my Hello or my Best of Luck Gloria graphic is not centered. So if I click on this graphic, I can use this guideline to help me center objects. Zoom out. I've got something like this happening. I'm going to lock all of my elements except for my graphics, and I'm going to lighten those tints up a bit. By doing selections on some of these. So there's a couple different ways to select elements. And I'm just going to go through and I think I'm going to have to select them this way. Some of these I'm going to kind of customize this to make it lighter. Sort of customize my graphic. Craftsmanship now is taking the time to kind of find and refine your elements here. So I'm just going to do some layering and also change some color sequence here so that these start looking a little bit different. Got these nice layouts. So if I was to go and save this, file to save, when I choose save, that little asterisk will disappear. I can save this to my printout for a party office sign. It's going into my Creative Cloud. So my document is saved. It loses that asterisk. If I want to save this as a PDF, you go to export, or Adobe PDF, and you can choose the type of PDF that you want. In this case, I'll go to high quality print. It'll give me the name. It'll tell me that I'm exporting it. If I want to export this to my desktop, I can choose that. This will give me my compatibility. If I want it compressed or do marks and bleeds or how I want to output this. These are all things that we talk about in other classes. I'm going to choose export. And this is how this will look. So if I go to print, this automatically opened up my Adobe Acrobat to see how this graphic will look. Okay. If I want to make changes to Hello World, if I say that this is best of luck, I'm going to uncheck Hello World, type in best of luck, and Command S to save. That little asterisk goes away. I'm going to have to re-change my PDF. As soon as I click save, I'm going to replace it. Choose export. And, we don't want that. I'm going to redo this again because we didn't want it to say hello world. We'll go back through and we're always checking, right? That came up with an error message. I have to make sure that this is going to load correctly. We're always checking it did update. So you want to make sure that your work is updating. And that's some basics about saving to